October 1979. An evidence room in California. A cassette tape is placed into a recorder. An FBI agent presses play. What comes out of the speakers will later be described as one of the most disturbing recordings ever entered into a courtroom. Not because of what you see, but because of what you hear out to men, a van, and 5 teenage girls who never made it home. This is the story of Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, the men the press would call the Toolbox Killers. Lawrence Bittaker, born 1940, troubled early life, escalating criminal behavior, burglary. Assault prison, described as intelligent, but cold, psychological evaluations suggested. Antisocial traits, manipulative, detached, no empathy. Roy Norris, born 1948, also a history of violence and sexual offenses, repeated incarcerations, obsessive resentment toward women while in prison, that to me they bond over shared fantasies. Shared anger, shared hatred. By 1978, they are free and planning. They acquire a 1977 GMC cargo van, inside, soundproofing, tools, camera equipment, items later used in crimes. The van becomes mobile control, mobile isolation, mobile terror. They cruise beaches and parking lots in Southern California, targeting teenage girls, runaways. Hitchhikers, those least likely to be immediately missed, they offer rides. Some accept. In June 1979, their first known victim disappears. The pattern begins. Offer help, gain trust, drive away. For weeks, missing persons reports trickle in, but no clear connection yet. Police assume runaways. California in the late 1970s was already dealing with multiple serial predators. The cases don't immediately connect, but the killers grow more confident, more organized, more methodical over the summer of 1979. For more teenage girls disappear. Witnesses recall a brown van. To men, friendly at first, then gone, families begin organizing searches, flyers posted, news. Coverage grows. Still no clear suspect. Meanwhile, the killers document some of their crimes, photographs, audio recordings, not for profit, not for ransom, but for control, for replay, for reliving power. This detail would later haunt investigators. Ever wonder what true evil sounds like? Sometimes it's not screaming or shouting. Sometimes it's just a calm, quiet voice. And that's exactly what detectives found in one of the most disturbing cases in criminal history. It involves 2 men, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris. They committed a series of horrifying crimes, but what set them apart wasn't just their actions. It was something they left behind. Audio recordings. They recorded themselves during their crimes. Why would anyone do this? For them, it was about power, control, and creating a chilling souvenir of their acts. When law enforcement finally got their hands on these tapes, it sent shockwaves through the department. Seasoned agents, people who thought they had seen it all, were deeply shaken. Not by sounds of violence, but by the complete lack of emotion. The voices on the tapes were calm. Almost casual, you could hear them planning, discussing their actions with a terrifying indifference. There was no panic, no anger, just cold, calculated cruelty. It was the sound of psychological detachment, a complete disconnect from human empathy. Years later, FBI profilers would use this case as a teaching tool in their behavioral analysis unit. Not to study the physical evidence, but to understand the mindset of predators who operate without a conscience. These recordings are rarely ever played or discussed publicly. The few who have heard them, including investigators and legal professionals, have described lasting emotional trauma. The sheer emptiness in the killers' voices was more haunting than any explicit detail. For a long time, it seemed like these 2 might get away with it. They were careful, methodical, and left few clues. But the downfall of their twisted partnership came from an unexpected place. One of them started talking, Roy Norris. A junior partner in this deadly duo began to brag. He confided in an acquaintance, recounting details of what they had done. Like a leaking faucet, the information started to drip out into the world. Eventually, a tip reached law enforcement. Surveillance on both men began immediately. The pressure mounted. It was Norris who broke first, facing the possibility of the death penalty. He made a deal. He agreed to testify against his partner, Lawrence Bittaker, in exchange for his own life. The pact was broken, and their entire world began to unravel. In October of 1979, both men were arrested. Investigators searched their infamous van, a vehicle they nicknamed Murder Mac. The case against them was building, but the most powerful evidence was yet to come. During the trial, the prosecution made a bold move. They decided to play the audio recordings for the jury. The effect was immediate and profound. The courtroom atmosphere grew heavy, and jurors visibly struggled to maintain their composure. The casual cruelty on the tapes was undeniable. Following this, Roy Norris took the stand. He described their planning sessions in chilling detail, how they selected their targets, and the power dynamic that existed between him and Bittaker. Throughout all of this, Lawrence Bittaker remained eerily composed. He sat there, emotionless, just watching the proceedings as if he were a spectator at a movie. His lack of reaction was, in itself, a terrifying confirmation of what the tapes had revealed. In 1981, the verdicts came in. For his cooperation, Roy Norris was sentenced to 45 years to life in prison. Lawrence Bittaker, the architect of their horrific spree, was sentenced to death. Criminal psychologists who later examined the case were struck by a few key things: shared psychopathy, the way they reinforced each other's violent fantasies, and how their partnership caused a terrifying escalation. They weren't impulsive killers. These two planned, documented, and discussed everything. Alone, they were dangerous, but together, they were catastrophic. The Toolbox Killers case is one of the most disturbing in California's history, not just because of the crimes, but because of the evidence they left behind, the recordings, the documentation, the calculated nature of it all. It forced law enforcement to reconsider how partnerships can amplify violence, how predators evolve, and how truly evil someone can sound while being completely calm. Lawrence Bittaker died in prison in 2019. Roy Norris remains incarcerated, but the echoes of those tapes still linger in FBI archives, locked away and rarely played, because some things, once you hear them, can't be unheard. Some killers scream and rage, but the most terrifying ones speak quietly and mean every single word. Thank you for watching Twisted Cases. For more real unsolved mysteries, disturbing cases, and stories that time never forgot, subscribe and join us. New episodes every week.